Hi everyone, checking in with you for this week's Midweek Devotional. Well, last week we started a new devotional series in the Psalms. So where do we look for help when something bigger than us comes against us? A disease, a personal enemy, a disability, something that causes us to feel worry, anxiety, depression, or fear. Well, today we're going to look at the psalmist's answer to these questions. We're going to look at a psalm that contains warfare and worship, persecution and praise. It is considered by some to be one of the most famous psalms in the Bible. Today we're going to look at Psalm 27. It's a psalm of David, and David was a king, but he was also a man after God's own heart. So let me read the first 3 verses of Psalm 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked advance against me to devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. Some of you are facing something difficult right now. Some of you are experiencing hard times in your life. Though I doubt any of you have an entire army pursuing you, not likely any of us will have an army besiege us. David is up against people who want to overthrow him. And in these opening verses, we see he is in physical danger. David is saying bad things, real things can happen. Yet I've got something that will overcome it so that I can face it. So what does David do? Let me read to you verse 4. One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. What is David doing here? Let me tell you what he's not doing. He is not asking God to change his circumstances. He's not asking God to make the army turn away. Now, it's not wrong for us to ask these things. We know that we can and should ask God for our daily bread, our daily needs. We need to ask God to deliver us. You know, in the Lord's Prayer, before we read about asking God to give us our daily bread and deliver us from evil, we first spend time just looking at God. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done. We first look at God. We spend time gazing at God's beauty before we get to our circumstances. I think often in our prayer life, we are quick to jump to our requests, our needs, and our circumstances. I know it is for me. Perhaps what we should first pray is, God, help me prioritize just being with you and seeking you more than I do my circumstances. It's fine to pray for circumstances, our health, our finances, and so on, but that is not our main issue. What is it we really need? David is saying in this psalm, I want to dwell in your house. I want to seek your face. That is the one thing I want. Now, what is David referring to here when he speaks of the house and temple? Remember, this is David, not Solomon. The temple was not built during David's lifetime. It was built by his son Solomon. During David's lifetime, the Ark of the Covenant, which represented the presence of God, dwelled in the tabernacle, which was a movable tent. So David here likely is referring to the tabernacle when he speaks of the house of the Lord. Let me read to you verses 5 and 6. David speaks of God's sacred tent. It says, in the days of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock. Then my head will be exalted above the enemies who surround me. At his sacred tent, I will sacrifice with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. You know, another possibility, however, is when he says that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, he may simply be referring to God's presence. David did not mean he would live inside the tabernacle. He was a king, not a priest. Priests were the ones who served inside the tabernacle. So it's likely that it is God's presence that David is desiring here. You know, of course, for believers today, the New Testament clearly states that God's people are now the temple. We're the temple. We are where God dwells. You know, David's greatest desire was to live in the presence of the Lord all the days of his life. Sadly, as one commentator put it, that is not the greatest desire for many who claim to be believers today. What does David mean by this term, one thing? In verse 4, David said, one thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek. What David is saying here is, I don't care what it takes or what it costs. I want to know God more. I want unbroken fellowship with you, Lord. I want to seek your face. I want to experience your presence. That is what I want more than anything else. Is that your greatest desire today? David is saying, that is all I really need. If I have this, everything else will be all right. David is giving you and me a reminder of this truth. Let me read verses 7 to 8. David goes on to say, "Hear my voice when I call, Lord. Be merciful to me and answer me. My heart says of you, seek his face. Your face, Lord, I will seek." David knew with people seeking to devour him, with an army surrounding him, the ultimate answer was not changing circumstances. It was to seek the face of God. To seek the hand of God is to seek what God can give us. Seeking the face of God is to seek God himself. Let me say that again. To seek the hand of God is to seek what God can give you. Seeking the face of God is to seek God himself, his personal presence. It is to have fellowship with God. And that should be the primary desire of true believers.